Have you ever wondered why, when we finally understand love in its deepest essence, we seem to lose the ability to simply fall in love? There's something almost paradoxical about this experience, which many of us encounter at some point in our lives. We feel the desire for connection, the yearning to understand and be understood, and yet, the closer we get to a philosophical understanding of love, the further away we seem to become from the direct, unreflective experience of this feeling we used to call passion. This contradiction is not just a personal dilemma, but reflects one of the great challenges of Kantian thought: how to reconcile reason with feelings, understanding with experience. Many of us try to approach Kant's thought as if it were just another set of ideas to be memorized, failing to realize that his concepts demand a complete transformation in our way of understanding the world and ourselves. We feel an inadequacy, a lack of depth, when we try to apply his ideas to the experience of love without truly understanding the revolution they propose in our way of thinking. I promise that by the end of this reflection, you will not only understand why the awakened experience love in a fundamentally different way, but you will also have tools to transform your own relationship with love and with others. This knowledge is not merely theoretical, but has the potential to profoundly alter how you live, how you love, and how you relate to yourself. And perhaps most importantly, understanding Kant's vision of love now can make an immediate difference in how you experience your current relationships, freeing you from illusions that cause unnecessary suffering. Let's explore together how Kant's philosophy illuminates this apparent paradox of philosophical awakening and love. Love, in its common conception, seems to be the most spontaneous of emotions, the one that simply happens to us, without deliberation, without reflection, a force that sweeps us away and carries us beyond ourselves. It is precisely this seemingly irrational quality, this feeling of being dominated by something greater than ourselves, that we so often celebrate in songs, poems, and films about love. But Kant invites us to reflect more deeply, and it is here that we begin to understand why philosophical awakening seems to fundamentally transform our experience of love. In the groundwork of the metaphysics of morals, Kant distinguishes between inclinations and duty, between acting from desire and acting from moral principle. This distinction, when applied to love, reveals something surprising. What we commonly call being in love is primarily an inclination, a response to stimuli we feel but do not choose. For Kant, however, true human freedom lies not in blindly following such inclinations, but in acting according to principles we rationally choose, according to what he calls the categorical imperative. As we began to awaken philosophically, we began to realize that much of what we called love was actually a way of using the other as a means to satisfy our own emotional needs, our search for security, validation, and completeness. We realized that we were projecting our own fantasies and expectations onto the other, treating the loved one not as an end in themselves, but as a means to our own satisfaction. I'm going to pause here and ask you directly, how many times have you felt lost trying to understand why your experiences of love never seem to live up to your ideal? That sense that there's a deeper truth about love that remains elusive, that somehow escapes us with each new relationship? You're not alone. Many of us carry this quiet restlessness, this desire to truly understand what Kant might tell us about the difference between love as an inclination and love as a rational, moral choice. I'd love for you to share your experience in the comments. It could be something simple, like, "My biggest difficulty in understanding love through Kantian philosophy is an-as." Your comment not only helps me create content more targeted to your real needs, but also creates a community where others, who may be facing the same obstacles as you, can feel understood and less alone in their philosophical journey. It's through this honest exchange that we grow together. So please pause the video for a moment and share your experience. Your voice matters more than you know. The Kantian philosophical awakening leads us to an understanding of love that transcends mere inclination. In the metaphysics of morals, Kant distinguishes between pathological love and practical love. Pathological love is based on feelings and inclinations, while practical love is based on respect for the moral law and the will to promote the other's happiness. This distinction is fundamental to understanding why the philosophically awakened no longer seem to fall in love in the conventional sense. It's not that they've become cold or incapable of feeling, but rather that they recognize that true love cannot be reduced to a passive feeling that simply happens to us. True love, in the Kantian view, involves an active choice, a commitment to the well-being of the other grounded in reason and respect for human dignity. When we awaken to this understanding, the experience of falling into love, of being dominated by a force external to ourselves, begins to seem like a way of abdicating our rational autonomy, of submitting ourselves to inclinations we didn't consciously choose. We begin to see that much of what we call romantic love is actually a form of self-deception, a way of projecting our own desires and expectations onto another, treating the beloved as an object of our gratification rather than as an autonomous subject worthy of respect in his or her own right. This awakening has profound consequences. First, we become more aware of how our inclinations can lead us to use others as means to our ends. We realize that when we fall in love, in the conventional sense, we are often seeking someone who fulfills our emotional needs, who makes us feel complete, who gives us security or validation. In other words, we are treating the loved one as an instrument for our own happiness, thus violating Kant's categorical imperative to treat humanity, both in our own person and in the person of any other, always as an end, never simply as a means. Second, we begin to recognize the importance of autonomy, both in ourselves and in others. In the Kantian view, rational autonomy is the source of human dignity, and true love must respect and promote this autonomy, not compromise it. Conventional romantic passion, with its tendency to idealize the other and seek a fusion of identities, often threatens this autonomy, leading to relationships of emotional dependence that are incompatible with respect for human dignity. Third, we come to value universality and impartiality in our romantic relationships. The categorical imperative demands that we act according to maxims we can will as universal laws. This means that true love cannot be based on arbitrary preferences or contingent inclinations, but must be grounded in principles that can be universalized, that recognize the inherent value of each person as a rational being. The Kantian philosophical awakening, therefore, does not render us incapable of love, but fundamentally transforms our understanding of what love is and should be. It is no longer a passive falling into an emotional state, but an active choice based on respect and recognition of the other's intrinsic value. It is no longer a search for completeness or personal satisfaction, but a commitment to the well-being and autonomy of the other for their own sake. It is no longer a contingent preference for particular qualities, but a recognition of the universal value of humanity in each person. This transformation may seem, at first glance, to be a loss of spontaneity or emotional intensity. We may feel nostalgic for the unreflective experience of simply letting ourselves be carried away by our inclinations, of falling into love without question or analysis. But Kant shows us that this nostalgia is misguided, for what we lose in unreflective spontaneity, we gain in depth, authenticity, and mutual respect. Love based on reason and respect may not have the giddiness of romantic passion, but it has a depth and permanence that mere inclination could never achieve. This does not mean, however, that Kant completely rejects the role of emotions and inclinations in love. In the metaphysics of morals, he recognizes that love as a feeling is a natural part of human experience, and can even serve as a support for practical love, for the duty to promote the happiness of others. The problem arises when we confuse this feeling with the essence of love, when we allow our inclinations to completely determine our actions without the filter of reason and moral consideration. Philosophical awakening allows us to integrate feeling and reason, inclination and duty into a more complete and authentic conception of love. We now see that true love is neither pure emotion nor pure reason, but a synthesis of the two, guided by the categorical imperative to always treat the other as an end in themselves. This integration is exemplified in what Kant calls moral friendship, which he considers the most perfect form of interpersonal relationship. In moral friendship, two people unite in mutual respect and benevolence, each recognizing and promoting the dignity and autonomy of the other. This ideal can be extended to romantic love, transforming what we commonly see as a relationship of dependence and possession into a partnership of respect and mutual support between autonomous beings. Philosophical awakening, therefore, does not render us incapable of love, but rather allows us to love in a more conscious, ethical, and ultimately satisfying way. We are no longer at the mercy of inclinations that simply happen to us, but are able to choose to love in a way that respects both our own autonomy and that of others. We are no longer trapped in a conception of love as a mystical or irrational force that dominates us, but we recognize love as an expression of our capacity for moral rationality and mutual respect. This transformation may seem, at first, like a loss of magic or romanticism. We may feel that by analyzing love philosophically, we are somehow dissecting and killing what was once alive and vibrant. But this impression is superficial. What we lose in romantic illusion, we gain in depth and authenticity. The love that emerges from philosophical awakening may lack the vertigo of thoughtless passion, but it has a clarity and integrity that mere inclination could never achieve. The fundamental lesson we learn from Kant is that true love is not something that simply happens to us, but something we actively choose and consciously construct. It is not a passive state of being dominated by emotions, but an active commitment to the well-being and autonomy of the other. It is not a search for completeness or personal satisfaction, but a recognition of the intrinsic value of the other as a rational being worthy of respect. When we awaken philosophically, we stop falling into love because we recognize that true love is not a fall, but an elevation, an exercise of our capacity for moral rationality and mutual respect. This understanding fundamentally transforms our experience of loving and being loved. We are no longer seeking someone to fulfill our emotional needs or complete us, but someone with whom we can build a relationship based on mutual respect and the reciprocal promotion of autonomy and happiness. We are no longer idealizing the other or projecting our fantasies and expectations onto them, but recognizing and valuing the concrete reality of the loved one, with all their complexities and imperfections. This transformation frees us from many of the illusions and suffering associated with conventional romantic love. We are no longer at the mercy of the fluctuations of our emotions or the actions of others. We are no longer vulnerable to disappointment and despair when the object of our passion fails to meet our unrealistic expectations. We are no longer trapped in relationships of dependence and possession that compromise our autonomy and that of others. Instead, we are able to build relationships based on mutual respect, honesty, and a shared commitment to each other's well-being. This is the paradox of philosophical awakening. By losing the ability to fall into love in the conventional sense, we gain the ability to love in a deeper, more ethical, and ultimately more satisfying way. It is not a loss, but a transformation, an evolution of our understanding and experience of love. But this awakening does not come without challenges. One of the greatest challenges is communicating and sharing this transformed understanding of love in a world that still predominantly celebrates the conventional romantic conception. We may feel misunderstood or isolated in our search for a love based on mutual respect and moral rationality. We may face social pressures to conform to conventional romantic expectations, to seek and experience the kind of overwhelming passion celebrated in our culture. Another challenge is integrating this philosophical understanding with the concrete reality of our emotions and desires. Even after philosophical awakening, we remain sensitive beings, with inclinations and emotions that we cannot simply ignore or suppress. The challenge is to find a balance, a way to honor our emotions without being overwhelmed by them, to feel deeply without losing our rational autonomy. A third challenge is to apply this understanding to our everyday relationships. It is relatively easy to understand the categorical imperative in theory, but applying it consistently in our interactions with others, especially in emotionally charged situations, requires ongoing practice and commitment. Despite these challenges, the philosophical awakening offers us an opportunity to fundamentally transform our experience of love, to elevate it from a mere inclination to an exercise of our moral rationality and our respect for human dignity. This transformation is not a loss, but a gain, an evolution in our understanding and experience of love. We are no longer at the mercy of forces we do not choose or understand, but are capable of loving in a way that respects both our own autonomy and that of others. We are no longer trapped by romantic illusions that inevitably lead to disappointment, but are capable of building relationships based on the concrete reality of the people we love. We no longer seek in love an escape from ourselves or a solution to our existential loneliness, but recognize love as an expression of our capacity for ethical connection and mutual respect. Philosophical awakening, therefore, does not render us incapable of love, but rather allows us to love in a more conscious, ethical, and ultimately satisfying way. We are no longer falling into love because we recognize that true love is not a fall, but an elevation, an active choice based on respect and recognition of the other's intrinsic value. This transformed understanding of love has profound implications, not only for our romantic relationships, but for all our interpersonal relationships. It allows us to see and treat others not as means to our ends, but as ends in themselves, worthy of respect for their own worth. It allows us to build communities based not on selfish interests or contingent inclinations, but on the recognition of the universal value of humanity in each person. In a world often characterized by selfishness, the instrumentalization of others, and social fragmentation, this Kantian vision of love and interpersonal relationships offers a path to a more ethical and satisfying way of living and relating. But this transformation is not a final destination, a state we achieve once and for all. It is an ongoing process, a lifelong journey of growth and learning. Each relationship, each interaction, each emotional challenge offers us a new opportunity to apply and deepen our understanding of love based on respect and moral rationality. Each time we choose to treat another as an end in themselves, each time we resist the temptation to use others as means to our ends, each time we honor autonomy and dignity in both ourselves and others, we are moving forward on this journey of philosophical awakening. And while this journey may at times be difficult and demanding, the rewards are profound. An experience of love that is both more ethical and more satisfying, relationships characterized by mutual respect and the reciprocal promotion of autonomy and happiness, and a life lived in greater harmony with our capacity for moral rationality and respect for human dignity. If you've ever felt overwhelmed by the complexities of love and philosophical thought, know that you're not alone on this journey. The path to understanding how Kant transforms our view of love doesn't have to be lonely or confusing. I invite you to subscribe to the channel and join this community of people who, like you, seek clarity amidst the maelstrom of fragmented information about philosophy and love. By subscribing, you'll receive weekly reflections that transform seemingly inaccessible concepts into practical insights for your love life and relationships. We're not just studying philosophy. We're learning to love more deeply, to question more wisely, and to relate with more purpose. Click the subscribe button now, not as an obligation, but as a gift for your own emotional and intellectual development. And if this content has brought you any clarity today about why the philosophically awakened experience love differently, please leave a like as a way to say, we're together in this quest for true knowledge. Remember, understanding Kant's view of love isn't just an academic exercise. It's a way to awaken to more conscious and authentic relationships.